Our next presenter will be Kevin Wilhelm. Take it away, Kevin.
Okay. So I'm going to talk to you today about how do we talk to the other side. As Dennis Hayes mentioned earlier in the talk, we're extremely divided as a nation. You've got people who are choosing their own facts, their own news sources, and we need to find a way to find that common ground and those win-win strategies to find commonality with people that don't necessarily agree with our opinions. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today, because it's especially important during a time of coronavirus, recession, and our existential threat of climate change. So we're as divided politically, economically, socially, and as was pointed out earlier, even in people's minds about diversity, equity, inclusion, social justice. However, what we need to be doing is we need to be finding ways that we can find common ground between Republicans, Democrats, how do we cross the urban-rural divide, between climate skeptics and advocates, and environmentalists on Wall Street. It really starts with the shared aspirations. I think during this time of COVID-19, people are able to reflect and say, hey, we need to find ways that we can be healthy, we can have some financial stability, we can have safe communities, and we can be all safe. And if we concentrate on the ends that we're trying to get instead of the means for how we get there, we can really find common ground. One of the areas between, say, Wall Street environmentalists that's always tripped us up is that people have thought that there had to be some kind of economic sacrifice, just kind of like we're hearing right now between opening up the economy and taking care of public health. But that great myth has been debunked between environmentalism and financial performance. You see that the sustainability funds of both the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 have outperformed their traditional competitors, and they've way outperformed over the last couple of weeks as oil has hit kind of its all-time low. When we're talking about how to solve climate change and cross the rural divide, you've got farmers that have been hit by the double whammy of low commodity prices, higher production costs, then came the tariffs, and then the coronavirus. But renewable energy and taking action on climate change is actually a sustainable solution for helping families save their farm. They could put a windmill on their farm, and on average, they can make about $7,000 per turbine. This can dramatically increase the baseline income and enable a family to preserve the farm for generations to come. When we talk about saving endangered species, there's been a push between environmentalists in kind of urban cities like Seattle and ranchers and farmers in Eastern Washington or Montana, mostly because they just want fairness. The ranchers and farmers don't want to have the burden and the bureaucracy of having to prove that one of their cows, when it gets maimed by a cougar or a wolf, that they have to go and get financial reimbursement. So what a group like the American Prairie Reserve has done in Montana is they installed motion sensor cameras so that every time one of these endangered species crossed their land through a wildlife corridor that was needed, they received money automatically. And that changed the whole mindset where they were able to see wildlife as an asset instead of a liability, and a way to find common ground and bring people together. Now on Earth Day, many people don't think of the military as a leader in terms of environmental causes. But the reality is the military has been leaning into environmental solutions and renewable energy for years. At the start of the Afghanistan war, for example, nearly 1 out of every 3 casualties that Americans suffered was associated with escorting diesel fuel convoys. Now, not only was this fuel needed for tanks, Humvees, aircraft, and helicopters, but about 40% of it was needed to power their bases and charge their electronics. After introducing portable solar panels, as you see here in the photo, casualties associated with fuel dropped to 1 out of 9. And this not only reduced the amount of batteries that the soldiers were carrying by about 25 pounds per soldier, but it reduced injuries, it made them more agile, and it made it easier for them to climb these 13,000-foot peaks when they were in battles with the Taliban. So in conclusion, as we're trying to reach out and make progress on this 50th anniversary of Earth Day, we need to rethink and remember how we can talk to the other side, where we can find common ground in these uncertain times where we face public health, economic, and environmental crises, and look for those examples that are win-win that can bring people together. Thank you.